The 9-foot alien priestess sneered at the thought of bonding with a human until she found herself carrying his child. A ferocious iron storm tore across the jagged obsidian tundra, its violet arcs of lightning scorching the sensors of Elias Voss's battered recon skiff. The craft's hull groaned as he wrestled the manual controls, his augmented left eye flickering with static from the planet's erratic magnetic surges. "Come on, you junk heap," he snarled, his scarred hands gripping the yoke. The skiff's systems were frying one by one, overwhelmed by the alien world's interference. The ground loomed, a glittering black expanse of razor-sharp stone and glowing crystal veins. The last thruster coughed, then died, leaving only the scream of wind and the crackle of electricity. Impact. The crash slammed Elias against his restraints, a sharp pain lancing through his ribs as blood trickled from a gash on his temple. When the world stopped spinning, he hung at an awkward angle, the cracked canopy revealing a storm-lashed tundra inches from his face. "Well, that sucked," he muttered, unbuckling and dropping to the slanted deck. A quick check showed his field kit intact, including his synaptic exosuit, a lightweight neural-linked rig of human design that could keep him alive in this nightmare. Elias suited up, visor retracted to conserve power, and stepped into the chaos. The air stung with ozone and the obsidian crunched under his boots, reflecting the storm's eerie glow. His HUD pegged the temperature at degrees C, the ionic surges making it feel like a live wire against his skin. "Distress call, this is Elias Voss, xenobiologist of the TSS Pathfinder. Anyone out there?" he broadcast, voice steady despite the howling static. Silence. A flicker of movement caught his augmented eye, a shimmer of gold against the black landscape. He spun, hand snapping to his neural stunner, but saw only swaying crystal spires. Shelter was critical, the skiff's power cells were slag, and his suit's reserves wouldn't last a week in this hell. Scans pinged a massive cave network 3 km southwest, a potential haven from the storm. As he trudged through the slicing wind, the sense of being watched gnawed at him. Years of studying alien ecosystems had sharpened his instincts. A sharp crack of splintering obsidian made him pivot, stunner raised. No mistake this time. Before him stood an alien who took his breath away, a towering 9-foot figure with skin like molten gold, her eyes twin orbs of liquid emerald that seemed to pulse with inner fire. Her hair, a cascade of crystalline filaments, shimmered with each lightning strike. Her attire, a lattice of glowing, translucent fabric, clung to her statuesque form, exuding both divinity and menace. She held a staff crackling with plasma, its tip locked on Elias' chest. "Well, damn," Elias said, lowering his stunner slightly but keeping his stance loose. "Didn't expect a goddess out here." Her emerald eyes narrowed and her voice deep and resonant, perfectly translated, cut through the storm. "You profane the sacred tundra of the Valthar covenant, human, courageous or foolish?" "Curious, mostly," Elias replied, flashing a crooked grin. "Elias Voss, xenobiologist, you." "I am Priestess Silvara of the Valthar covenant," she declared, her gaze slicing through him from boots to bloodied temple. "And you are my captive." Elias' grin held, though his mind raced through options. "Priestess, honored, but I usually need a drink before getting chained up." A low hum vibrated from Silvara, possibly amusement. "You jest in the face of judgment, typical human hubris." "Not hubris, just charm, besides you haven't caught me yet." His suit's neural interface was already profiling her staff, estimating its energy output. "Though I'll admit, the company's better than this storm." Silvara's staff didn't waver, but curiosity flickered in her glowing eyes. "You think to sway me with words? I've studied your kind, chaotic, ephemeral, unworthy of the Covenant's notice." "Sounds like your data's stale," Elias quipped, nodding at the worsening storm. "This weather's gonna fry us both. How about we talk somewhere less sparky?" "You dare propose terms to a priestess?" Her tone mixed outrage and intrigue. "Not terms, just survival. We'd both look better, not crispy." A brutal lightning bolt struck nearby, and Elias caught Silvara's subtle flinch. Her golden skin wasn't immune to the cold. The storm was a threat even to her. "Your reasoning holds," Silvara conceded, her staff dipping slightly. "My sanctum is near. Follow as my captive." "Lead on, priestess, though I'm not great with orders." As they navigated the obsidian maze, Elias kept his distance, nodding Silvara's fluid grace despite her towering frame. His suit's sensors clocked her bioenergy higher than any human's, like a living star. "I confess," Silvara said after a silent stretch, "you defy my expectations of human males." "Oh, thought we'd be scrawny, squishy, scared," Elias smirked. "Less resilient. Our techs deem your kind too fragile for alliance." She glanced sideways, her emerald eyes glinting. "Get better books," Elias laughed. "Humans are full of surprises." "So I see," Silvara replied. They reached a sheer obsidian cliff, and at her touch, a hidden portal shimmered open. "Though the idea of bonding with a human male is laughable." "Funny you mentioned bonding," Elias started, but a thunderous explosion overhead cut him off. The ground quaked, obsidian shards raining down. Without thinking, Elias tackled Silvara through the portal as it sealed, trapping them inside. They landed in a tangle, his suited frame pressed against her larger one. For a moment, their eyes locked under the sanctum's pulsing violet lights. "Well," Elias said, still tangled with her, "guess we're stuck debating interspecies chemistry now." The sanctum's violet glow bathed Silvara's golden skin in hypnotic patterns, casting her towering 9-foot frame in an ethereal light that made Elias Voss feel like he'd stumbled into a temple rather than a bunker. The air hummed with the faint vibration of unseen machinery, and the walls, smooth obsidian veined with glowing crystal, pulsed in time with the storm raging outside. Elias disentangled himself from the alien priestess, his synaptic exosuit whirring softly as he stood, brushing off the dust of their unceremonious landing. Silvara rose with a grace that belied her size, her crystalline hair shimmering like a cascade of stars. Her emerald eyes locked onto him, unreadable but intense, as she adjusted her plasma staff, its tip no longer aimed at his chest but still held with purpose. Well, Elias said, keeping his tone light despite the adrenaline still pumping from the near miss with the collapsing entrance. That was one way to make an entrance. You always greet guests with a cave-in, or am I special? Silvara's lips twitched, that low hum vibrating from her throat again, definitely amusement this time. You are reckless human, she said, her resonant voice carrying a faint echo in the sanctum's cavernous chamber. Most would tremble, sealed in with a priestess of the Valthar covenant, yet you jest. Jest survive, same thing, Elias replied, flashing his crooked grin. He tapped his suit's wrist panel, pulling up a holographic HUD that flickered in the ionic interference. Besides, I've been in worse spots, usually with less divine company. Her eyes narrowed, but a spark of curiosity danced in their emerald depths. Flattery will not spare you judgment, Elias Voss, you trespass on sacred ground. Yeah, about that, he said, scanning the chamber. The sanctum was a marvel, obsidian arches curved into a domed ceiling, inlaid with crystal circuits that pulsed like a heartbeat. Consoles lined the walls, their screens dark from the storm's disruption. Didn't exactly plan to crash here. My skiff took a beating from your planet's light show. Any chance this place has a comms array to call for pickup? Silvara glided to a central console, her crystalline robe shimmering with each step. The ion storm has severed our relays, she said, her long fingers dancing over the controls. A faint spark flared, then died, and her shoulders tensed with frustration. We are cut off from the Covenant and your people alike. Elias leaned against a nearby pillar, projecting calm despite the situation. Could be worse, powers holding airs clean. His HUD confirmed stable environmental systems and energy reserves that could last weeks. Nice digs, by the way, very priestess-wise, she turned, towering over him, her presence filling the space like a storm of its own. You remain unconcerned, trapped with a potentially hostile priestess. Potentially hostile's progress from captive, Elias said, his grin widening. And I've got a knack for making friends in tight spots, though I gotta say you're the tallest friend I've ever made. That hum again, closer to a chuckle. Your kind's relentless charm is documented. Is it effective? You tell me, priestess. He met her gaze, his augmented eye whirring softly as it adjusted to the low light. Seems like you're warming up. Don't be absurd, Silvara snapped, but her tone softened as she stepped closer, her crystalline hair brushing the floor. Though you intrigue me, most species quail before the Covenant's might, you do not. Elias straightened, closing the gap slightly, though her height forced him to tilt his head. Maybe they didn't get a proper introduction. My suit's picking up some wild data on Valthar physiology. Want to hear? Her eyes slitted. You dare scan a priestess? Standard fieldwork, he said, unapologetic. Your bioenergy's through the roof, like a living fusion core. Your pulses sync to this place's rhythm, and he paused, smirking. Your stress markers spike when you're this close to me. Silvara's golden skin shimmered brighter, a flush that betrayed her composure. Presumptuous human, captive ally, whatever we're calling it, we're stuck here. Elias gestured to the pulsing walls. Might as well make it interesting. The air crackled, not from the storm but from a charged tension between them. Silvara's hand moved to his face, her crystalline nails cool against the gash on his temple. Your species is so fragile, she murmured, her voice dropping to a near whisper. So fleeting compared to ours, yet you show no fear. Should I? Elias' voice was low, challenging. Yes, but she didn't pull away. This is madness, the very notion of communion between our kinds. Elias reached up, his suited hand brushing a glowing filament of her hair. Madness is my specialty, priestess. The kiss was like touching a live plasma coil, her skin thrummed with energy, alien yet intoxicating. Time blurred as they crossed boundaries neither species had dared, the sanctum's violet glow casting their shadows in a dance of defiance. Later, sprawled in a crystalline alcove that served as a rest chamber, Elias traced patterns on Silvara's golden skin, marveling at its subtle luminescence. Still think human bonding's laughable, he teased, his voice thick with smugness. Silvara propped herself up on one elbow, her emerald eyes softer but no less intense. You've altered my perspective on certain matters, Elias Voss. Happy to rewrite your holy texts, he said, grinning, though I'm guessing this isn't standard covenant protocol. This changes nothing, she said, though her conviction wavered. If my enclave finds us, this remains our secret, for now. For now, Elias agreed, but before she could elaborate, a deep rumble shook the sanctum. Alarms blared as crystal circuits flared red, signaling structural breaches. Trouble, Elias muttered, his suit snapping to full power. Silvara was already moving, her priestess's instincts kicking in as she scanned the consoles. The explosion destabilized the tundra's lattice, she said, her voice sharp. The sanctum is compromised. Got an escape route? Elias asked, his HUD mapping the chamber for exits. A sacred conduit to the surface, Silvara replied, striding toward a hidden panel. But we must hurry. The ceiling groaned, shards of obsidian raining down as they reached the panel. Silvara's touch revealed a narrow tunnel, its walls pulsing with the same crystal veins as the sanctum. The climb was brutal, especially for Silvara's towering frame, and Elias led the way, his suit's lamps cutting through the dark. Priestess, he called back, no offense, but you're awfully quiet back there. Focus on climbing, human, she snapped, but her voice trembled, lacking its usual divine authority. She sounded distracted. The tunnel ended at a heavy crystal grate, which Elias forced open with a grunt, his suit's servos whining under the strain. A blast of frigid ozone-laced air hit them as they emerged onto the tundra's surface, the storm now a blinding swirl of violet lightning and black dust. His HUD clocked the temperature at degrees C and the ionic surges were spiking dangerously. But something else caught his attention. Silvara was shivering, her golden skin dimming as she clutched her arms around herself. "This isn't right," she whispered, her crystalline hair whipping in the wind. "Valthar, do not succumb to cold like this." Elias' suit beeped, its neural interface flashing urgent bio readings. "Your vitals are going haywire," he said, guiding her toward a nearby overhang of jagged obsidian. "Talk to me, what's happening?" "Everything is amplified," Silvara said, her voice unsteady. Colors burned brighter, sensations sharper, and she paused, her emerald eyes glowing unnaturally. "Something grows within me." Elias' suit chimed with a critical alert, its bioscan results stealing his breath. "Silvara, according to this you're pregnant, a human-Valthar hybrid." Her eyes widened, a mix of awe and disbelief. "Impossible, our biology should not align." "Tell that to our DNA," Elias said, taking her hand, her crystalline fingers laced with his, warm despite her shivers. "You okay?" A laugh, raw and radiant, escaped her. "Okay. I carry the first hybrid of our kinds. My enclave will convulse, the orthodoxy will demand my exile." She pulled him closer, her free hand tracing the contours of his suit. "Yet I am enthralled by the possibilities." "Not pissed?" Elias asked, his grin returning. "Pissed," Silvara's fangs gleamed faintly. "My people believed ourselves divine above all others. In one night you've proven humans are our equals, perhaps our mates. This changes everything." The overhang offered scant protection as the storm intensified and Elias' suit pinged new signatures, Valthar ships slicing through the tempest. "Company," he said, readying his stunner. "My enclave," Silvara said, rising to her full height despite her trembling. "They cannot find us together, not yet." "I'm not leaving you," Elias insisted, his augmented eye locking onto hers. "You must." She pressed a glowing crystal shard into his palm, its pulse syncing with his heartbeat. "This will guide you back to me. Find your people. I will contact you when it is safe." Elias hesitated, then pulled her into a fierce kiss, the storm's lightning framing them in violet fire. "This isn't goodbye." "No," Silvara agreed, pushing him toward a narrow ravine. "It is the beginning." He activated his suit's stealth mode and slipped into the storm, the shard pulsing warmly against his chest. Behind him, Silvara's voice rang out, sharp and commanding, berating her guards for their tardiness as they reached the overhang. Elias grinned, the crystal's warmth a promise of reunion, and vanished into the tundra's chaos. Elias Voss trudged through the obsidian tundra, the crystal shard pulsing warmly against his chest as the ion storm raged around him. His synaptic exosuit stealth mode cloaked him in a shimmer of refracted light, bending the violet lightning and black dust to conceal his movements. Shard, a gift from Priestess Silvara, thrummed in sync with his heartbeat, its faint glow guiding him southwest toward the nearest human outpost. His suit's biomonitors kept tabs on Silvara's vitals and those of their improbable child through a connection he couldn't quite explain but didn't question. The readings were stable, though the hybrid's growth rate was accelerating, defying every xenobiological model he'd studied. "Kid's gonna be a handful," he muttered, grinning despite the storm's assault. The tundra was a brutal maze of jagged spires and glowing crystal veins that seemed to hum with the planet's magnetic pulse. His HUD clocked the temperature at -40 degrees C, the ionic surges making his suit's neural interface flicker. Elias' augmented left eye scanned for threats, picking up faint signatures of Valthar patrols in the distance. Silvara's enclave was clearly on high alert, likely searching for their missing priestess. He kept low, moving between outcrops, his boots crunching softly on the brittle obsidian. The shard's pulse quickened, and he felt a fleeting sensation, Silvara's presence like a warm current in his mind. "Stay safe, Priestess," he whispered, pushing forward. After 2 days of relentless trekking, Elias crested a ridge and spotted Outpost Epsilon, a human colony nestled in a sheltered valley. Prefab domes and kinetic barriers gleamed under the storm's violet glow, but the sight of railgun turrets and patrolling drones set his nerves on edge. The place was gearing up for war. "What the hell?" he muttered, his HUD highlighting heavy weaponry and armored skiffs circling the perimeter. His suit's stealth mode held as he descended, but a patrol's sensors pinged him halfway down. A squad of exosuited troopers materialized, their pulse rifles trained on him. "Identify yourself." A gruff voice barked through the comms. Elias raised his hands, deactivating stealth to reveal his battered suit. "Elias Voss, xenobiologist, TSS Pathfinder, mind pointing those somewhere else?" The squad leader, a stocky woman with a buzzcut and a scarred jaw, lowered her rifle slightly. "Voss, Pathfinder reported your skiff down in Valthar territory 3 days ago. You're supposed to be dead." "Rumors of my demise," Elias quipped, flashing his crooked grin. "Good to see you too, Captain Reyes." Captain Maria Reyes snorted, her weathered face breaking into a reluctant smirk. "You're a walking miracle, Voss. Get inside before you start a diplomatic incident. We've got enough problems." As they escorted him to the command dome, Elias noted the outpost's feverish activity, techs calibrating defense grids, soldiers loading plasma cannons, and analysts hunched over hollow displays. "What's with the war prep?" he asked, keeping his tone casual despite the shard's steady pulse against his chest. Reyes led him into the command hub, a cramped space buzzing with activity. "The Valthar Covenant's gone nuts," she said, pulling up a holomap of the sector. Their priestess Silvara vanished 3 days ago right when you crashed. Their military's mobilizing and our intel's picking up chatter of a schism, some factions calling for blood. Elias kept his expression neutral, though his mind raced. Any word on Silvara? Reyes tapped the console, projecting a grainy intercept of Valthar transmissions. She's back, and here's the kicker: she's pregnant. The Orthodoxy's screaming heresy, claiming it's a human plot, but a chunk of their fleet's rallying behind her, calling it a divine omen. Elias' lips twitched, the shard pulsing in time with his quickening pulse. That's interesting. Interesting? Reyes raised an eyebrow. It's a powder keg, and then there's this bastard. She switched to a new feed, showing a towering Valthar male in ornate spiked armor, his skin a dull bronze and his eyes burning red. High Warden Korath, he's claiming Silvara's been corrupted by human tech, says the pregnancy's proof of biosabotage. He's pushing for a preemptive strike on our colonies. Elias whistled, leaning back. Guy got a flair for drama. Drama that could spark a war, Reyes snapped. We're fortifying Epsilon, but if Korath's fleet moves, we're in deep shit. Before Elias could respond, alarms blared through the hub. A junior officer burst in, her face pale. Captain, multiple ships entering orbit, Valthar royal signatures. Reyes grabbed her command visor, barking orders. Battle stations, all units, Voss, stay out of the way. Wait, Elias said, raising a hand. Let me talk to them first. Are you insane? Reyes glared, but the main holo display flickered to life before she could argue. Silvara's image filled the screen, her golden skin radiant in her crystalline regalia, her emerald eyes blazing with divine authority. The command hub fell silent, every eye locked on her. People of Epsilon, Silvara declared, her voice resonating through the dome. I am Priestess Silvara of the Valthar Covenant. I seek asylum. The room erupted in chaos, officers shouting, analysts scrambling to verify the signal. Elias stepped forward, ignoring Reyes' glare, the shard pulsing in sync with his heartbeat. Silvara's eyes found him through the screen, a flicker of warmth softening her regal mask. Elias Voss, she said, her tone carrying a hint of amusement, we have matters to discuss. Your Eminence, Elias replied, his grin wide enough to make several techs blink. You're looking well, feeling okay? Better with each moment, Silvara said, her smile sparking murmurs among the human crew, though I find myself missing our scientific discourse. Proximity alarms screamed as new signatures appeared, Valthar warships, their hulls bearing Korath's bronze insignia. His voice boomed across all frequencies, dripping with venom. Priestess, you defile the covenant by consorting with these vermin, your corruption will be cleansed. Corruption? Elias cut in, stepping closer to the display. That's my kid you're slandering, pal. Dead silence. Reyes buried her face in her hands, muttering something about court-martials. Silvara's laugh, rich and resonant, broke the tension, echoing through the hub. Well, my heart, that's one way to announce our bond. Korath's hologram materialized beside Silvara's, his red eyes blazing with rage. You dare claim? Oh, I dare, Elias interrupted, his grin sharp as a blade. Turns out humans and Valthar mix just fine. Your priestess is living proof. This is blasphemy, Korath roared, his bronze skin darkening. The Covenant will not tolerate this abomination. No, Silvara countered, her hand resting on her midsection, her voice cutting like crystal. This is divinity. Our child heralds a new era, one your orthodoxy fears. Half my fleet stands with me, Korath. How many answer to you? New signatures lit up the holo display, Valthar ships dropping from hyperspace, their hulls gleaming with Silvara's golden sigils. Elias leaned closer to the screen, his augmented eyes scanning the tactical data. Last chance, Korath, he called. Stand down or find out why humans are so damn stubborn. The standoff held for a heartbeat, then Korath's ships powered up their weapons, their bronze hulls glowing with plasma. So be it, he snarled. Silvara's image flickered, her eyes locking onto Elias. Elias Voss, will you aid me in quelling this rebellion? Elias cracked his knuckles, his suit's neural interface humming. Thought you never asked, Priestess. The Battle of Epsilon erupted like a cosmic firestorm, Valthar and human ships weaving through the ion storm in a deadly dance. Elias stood on the bridge of Silvara's flagship, Divine Spire, his exosuit interfacing with Valthar systems in ways that made their techs gape. The neural link, amplified by the crystal shard, let him coordinate with both fleets, his human ingenuity meshing with Valthar precision. Your tactics are unorthodox, Silvara observed from her crystalline throne, watching him redirect a salvo of plasma bolts into Korath's flank. Humans don't do predictable, Elias replied, his fingers dancing across a hollow panel. Incoming, the Divine Spire shuddered as Korath's flagship unleashed a barrage of ionic torpedoes. Elias' suit calculated an intercept in milliseconds, rerouting the ship's shields to absorb the blast. The Valthar gunners, initially skeptical of the human, now followed his lead, their plasma cannons tearing through Korath's formation. Not bad for a xenobiologist, Elias quipped, dodging a spark from a damaged console. Silvara's emerald eyes gleamed with something like pride, then she gasped, one hand pressing against her midsection. Elias was at her side in an instant, his suit's biomonitors flashing. Talk to me, he said, his voice steady despite the chaos. The child, Silvara whispered, her golden skin pulsing erratically. It grows too swiftly. Our combined genetics are accelerating its development. A Valthar medic rushed forward, their crystalline scanner humming. Priestess, the energy readings are unprecedented. The hybrid is progressing in hours, not months. Elias' augmented eye scanned the data, his jaw tightening. Medical bay now, Silvara gripped his arm, her strength surprising even through his suit. The battle can wait, Elias said, scooping her up despite their height difference. Her crystalline hair brushed his face as he carried her from the bridge, barking orders to her chief adjutant. You've got command, keep Korath pinned, but don't kill him, he's more useful alive. The adjutant, a wiry Valthar with silver skin, bowed deeply. As you command, Lord Voss. Elias snorted as he carried Silvara down the corridor. Lord, we'll sort titles later, right now I've got a date with a delivery room. Silvara's laugh turned into a groan as another contraction hit, the ship's lights flickering in sync with her bioenergy. You're enjoying this too much, she muttered, her head resting against his shoulder. Says the priestess who scoffed at human mating, Elias teased, though his voice softened. I'm not laughing now. No, she agreed, her emerald eyes meeting his, but our child will shake the stars. The medical bay was a blend of human and Valthar tech, sterile white panels alongside glowing crystal interfaces. The mixed team of medics worked frantically, their scanners registering energy spikes that made the air hum. Elias held Silvara's hand as she lay on a crystalline slab, her golden skin glowing brighter with each contraction. The crystal shard pulsed in his pocket, its energy linking him to her and their child in ways his science couldn't explain. You know, Elias said, brushing a filament of her hair aside, this isn't how I plan to spend my fieldwork. Silvara's smile was tired but radiant. When this is over, I'll make you regret every quip. Promise, he asked, grinning. Her response was cut off by a surge of energy that made every light in the bay flicker. The crystal shard flared, its glow merging with Silvara as the medics shouted readings. The child's bioenergy is rewriting our systems, one cried. Elias' suit beeped, its neural interface struggling to process the data. This is gonna be one hell of a kid, he muttered, squeezing Silvara's hand. The medical bay of the divine spire thrummed with an otherworldly energy, its crystalline interfaces pulsing in sync with Silvara's golden glow. The air crackled with static, as if the very fabric of reality was straining under the weight of what was unfolding. Elias Voss stood by the crystalline slab, gripping Silvara's hand, his synaptic exosuit's neural interface flashing wildly as it tried to process the unprecedented bioreadings from her and their unborn child. The Valthar medics, their silver skin glinting under the bay's violet lights, worked alongside human doctors in a frenzy, their scanners emitting high-pitched whines as they registered energy spikes that defied every known model. The crystal shard in Elias' pocket burned hot, its pulse merging with Silvara's, linking them in a way that felt both scientific and mystical. Silvara's emerald eyes, glowing brighter than ever, locked onto his, a mix of determination and vulnerability in their depths. This child, she whispered, her voice strained as another contraction rippled through her, making the bay's lights flicker. It is rewriting everything. No kidding, Elias said, his crooked grin steady despite the chaos. His augmented left eye scanned the data streaming across his HUD, bioenergy levels off the charts, cellular growth rates that made his xenobiological training scream impossible. Our kid's already hacking your ship's systems, gotta say I'm impressed. Silvara's laugh was cut short by a sharp gasp, her golden skin flaring with luminescent patterns that danced like solar flares. The lead Valthar medic, a lanky figure with translucent eyes, leaned in, their scanner trembling. Priestess, the hybrid's development is accelerating beyond comprehension. It's interfacing with our tech, rewriting protocols in real time. Elias' suit beeped urgently, confirming the medic's words. The child's bioenergy wasn't just growing, it was evolving, sending out pulses that synced with the divine spire's crystal circuits. Consoles sparked, screens flickered with unreadable glyphs, and the ship's gravity fluctuated, making Elias brace against the slab. Okay, kid, he muttered, squeezing Silvara's hand, let's not crash Mommy's flagship before you're born. Elias, Silvara said, her voice a mix of amusement and pain, your humor is infuriating. Part of my charm, he shot back, brushing a crystalline filament of her hair from her sweat-slicked forehead. You're doing great, Priestess, just hang in there. The human doctor, a wiry woman with gray streaks in her hair, adjusted a portable scanner, her face pale but focused. Dr. Voss, the fetal readings are unlike anything in our database. The hybrid's DNA is fusing human and Valthar markers, creating something new. We're seeing neural complexity that rivals AI cores. Sounds like our kid's gonna be a genius, Elias said, though his chest tightened. The implications were staggering, a child who could bridge species, rewrite tech, maybe even reshape their worlds. He glanced at Silvara, her towering form somehow fragile in this moment. You sure you're okay? Her fangs gleamed in a faint smile. I am divine, Elias Voss, and I am terrified. Join the club, he said softly, his thumb tracing circles on her hand. We've got this. The bay shook as an explosion rocked the divine spire, a reminder of the battle raging outside. Elias' HUD flashed with tactical updates. Korath's bronze-hulled warships were hammering Silvara's fleet, their ionic torpedoes cutting through the ion storm with ruthless precision. The human contingent from Outpost Epsilon was holding the line, but barely, their skiffs weaving desperate patterns to counter the Valthar's superior firepower. Elias had left Silvara's adjutant in command, but Korath's forces were relentless, driven by fanatical zeal to purge the abomination they believed Silvara carried. Status report, Elias barked into his comms, his suit relaying to the bridge. The adjutant's voice crackled back, strained but steady. Lord Voss, Korath's flagship has breached our outer defenses. They're attempting to board. We're holding, but we need you. Elias' jaw clenched. I'm not leaving her, he said, glancing at Silvara, her eyes, though pained, burned with resolve. Go, she said, her voice cutting through the bay's hum. Protect our child. Not happening, Elias replied, his tone firm. You're not facing this alone. Silvara's hand tightened on his, her crystalline nails digging into his suit. Elias, Korath will not stop. If he reaches this bay, she paused, her emerald eyes flickering with fear. He will kill our child. The shard in his pocket flared, and Elias felt a surge of her emotions, fierce protectiveness, unshakable love, and a priestess's unyielding will. He nodded, his grin replaced by a steely determination. Fine, but I'm not going far. He pressed the shard into her hand, its glow intensifying. Keep this, it's our link. She clutched it, her golden skin pulsing in time with the crystal. Be swift, my heart. Elias kissed her fiercely, the taste of ozone and her alien warmth lingering as he pulled away. Hold that thought, priestess, I've got a warden to smack down. The corridor outside the medical bay was a war zone. Valthar loyalists in crystalline armor clashed with Korath's bronze-clad zealots, plasma bolts and ionic blades lighting up the obsidian halls. Elias' suit hummed as he activated its combat protocols, the neural interface amplifying his reflexes. He dove behind a bulkhead as a plasma burst scorched the wall, his stunner snapping up to drop a zealot with a precise pulse to the chest. Attention Divine Spire crew, he broadcast shipwide, his voice cutting through the chaos. This is Elias Voss. We've got uninvited guests trying to crash a very special delivery. Let's show them some human hospitality. The response was immediate. Human Marines from Epsilon, integrated into Silvara's crew, rallied alongside Valthar warriors, their combined tactics catching Korath's forces off guard. Elias moved like a shadow, his suit's stealth mode flickering as he planted micro-explosives along the corridor. The charges weren't lethal, just enough to herd the zealots into a choke point. Come on, you bronze-plated fanatics, he muttered, detonating the first set. The blast sent Korath's troops scrambling right into a crossfire from the loyalists. Impressive, a Valthar officer called, their silver skin glinting as they fired a plasma rifle. Your tactics are chaotic, Lord Voss. Chaos is my middle name, Elias quipped, ducking a blade that sang with ionic energy. The crystal shard pulsed, and he felt Silvara's presence, stronger now, laced with urgency. The child was coming, and fast. The ship shuddered again, and Elias' HUD flashed a warning. Korath himself was leading a strike team toward the medical bay via a secondary conduit. Perfect, Elias growled, sprinting toward the access shaft, right where I want him. He reached the conduit just as Korath burst through, a towering figure in spiked bronze armor, his red eyes burning with righteous fury. His ionic blade hummed, crackling with enough power to cut through Elias' suit like paper. Stand aside, human, Korath roared, his voice shaking the walls. This ends now. Elias raised his stunner, his suit's neural link boosting his speed. Actually, I think this is where I'm supposed to be. Want to know why? Your primitive defiance is futile, Korath snarled, advancing. The abomination must not be born. Because, Elias continued, his grin sharp as he activated another set of charges, my kid, about to make one hell of an entrance. The medical bay doors exploded inward in a cascade of violet light, energy surging through the corridor like a tidal wave of starfear. Elias felt it first through the shard's link, a new consciousness raw and powerful, blending human adaptability with Valthar divinity. The crystal shattered in Silvara's hand, its energy merging with the phenomenon, and every system in the corridor went haywire, lights flaring, consoles rebooting, Korath's armor sparking as its circuits fried. When the light faded, Korath stood frozen, his ionic blade dead in his hand. Elias spun toward the bay where Silvara cradled their child, a perfect fusion of human and Valthar. The infant glowed with an inner radiance, its skin a shimmering blend of gold and human tan, its eyes shifting between Elias' gray and Silvara's emerald. Every device in the bay hummed in sync with its presence, screens displaying new patterns that baffled the medics. Well, Elias said, stepping into the bay, his voice soft with awe, that's definitely got my smirk. The child cooed and the ship's systems pulsed in response, upgrading themselves in real time. Silvara, exhausted but radiant, looked up at Elias, her smile triumphant. This is impossible. You keep saying that word, Elias teased, quoting her earlier jest. I don't think it means what you think it means. Korath staggered into the bay, his armor sparking, his red eyes wide with disbelief. This cannot be. Oh, it be, Elias said, stepping protectively in front of Silvara and their child. Meet the future warden, name's pending, but I'm leaning towards something badass. Silvara's voice cut through the stunned silence, regal despite her fatigue. This is Elisra, born of the storm and the stars. She's the Covenant's new divine. The ship's comms activated without input, broadcasting Elisra's image across all frequencies, human and Valthar alike. Her hybrid nature was undeniable, her presence a beacon that silenced both fleets. Korath dropped to one knee, his voice rough with emotion. Priestess, I was wrong. Yes, Silvara said, her emerald eyes blazing, but you may yet redeem yourself. Elisra is not the end of Valthar purity, but the dawn of a greater unity. Elias moved to her side, marveling at their daughter's glowing features. So about those titles we were dodging early. Don't push it, Voss, Silvara said, but her smile betrayed her. Elisra burbled, and the bay's lights pulsed again, drawing gasps from the medics. The battle outside dwindled as Korath's forces wavered, their zeal shaken by the broadcast. Silvara's loyalists pressed their advantage, and human skiffs capitalized on the chaos, disabling Korath's flagship with surgical strikes. Elias' HUD showed the tide turning, but his focus remained on Silvara and Elisra. You know, he said, brushing a finger along Elisra's tiny, glowing hand, we still need to figure out what to call this moment. Silvara looked at their child, her expression softening. In Valthar tradition, children of prophecy are named for their birth's significance. And this one, Elias asked, his grin returning. The dawn of union, Silvara said, her voice carrying the weight of centuries. Elisra is our bridge. 3 months later, Elias adjusted the sleek diplomatic tunic tailored to blend human functionality with Valthar aesthetics, its obsidian fabric shimmering under the lights of their private quarters aboard the Divine Spire. The tunic felt alien compared to his exosuit, but the upcoming summit demanded a different kind of armor. He caught his reflection in a crystalline panel, scarred face, gray eyes, one augmented, and a stubborn smirk that hadn't faded despite the galaxy's best efforts. Struggling with the clasps my heart, Silvara's resonant voice came from the doorway, laced with amusement. She stood in her full regalia, a vision of golden skin and crystalline hair, Elisra cradled in one arm. Their daughter at 3 months was already a marvel, her growth outpacing human norms but slower than Valthar, her skin a perfect blend of Elias' tan and Silvara's gold, her eyes flickering between gray and emerald. She babbled and the room's lights pulsed, a tiny light show that made Elias chuckle. These are designed for giants, he grumbled, fumbling with the tunic's intricate fastenings. You try looking dignified when your clothes fight back. Silvara glided forward, her free hand expertly adjusting his collar. Such complaints from the man who navigated my sanctum's defenses with ease, she teased, her emerald eyes sparkling. Though I recall you had no trouble with other complexities. Elias grinned, winking at her. That was different, I was highly motivated. Elisra giggled, and a nearby console flickered, displaying a holographic replay of Elias' crash landing, thankfully edited to avoid their more private moments. She's got your sense of drama, Elias said, taking Elisra from Silvara's arms. The infant's touch sent a pulse through his suit's neural link, syncing with her bioenergy in ways that still baffled him. Summit begins soon, Silvara reminded him, her tone shifting to priestess mode. Are you ready to upend the orthodoxy again? Me, you're the one who told the Valthar Council human males are surprisingly versatile, Elias shot back, raising an eyebrow. Pretty sure you scandalized half your suitors. Her laugh sent shivers down his spine, as potent now as it was in the sanctum. I spoke only truth. Besides, the surge in human-Valthar pairing requests suggests our union has inspired. Yeah, about that, Elias said, bouncing Elisra gently. Did you have to tell the entire covenant about my stamina? I'm getting knowing looks from your guards. Would you prefer I lied? Silvara asked, her fangs gleaming mischievously. A diplomatic aide's voice crackled through the intercom, carefully timed to avoid interrupting in person, a lesson learned after one too many aides walked in on their discussions. Priestess, Lord Voss, the delegates are arriving. Time to face the galaxy, Elias said, handing Elisra back to Silvara. Ready to show them what the future looks like. With you, Silvara replied, her hand lingering on his shoulder always. The grand diplomatic chamber of the Divine Spire was a masterpiece of Valthar design, obsidian walls inlaid with crystal circuits that pulsed like a living organism, a domed ceiling reflecting the iron storm outside in shimmering patterns. The mixed crew of humans and Valthar worked seamlessly, a sight that still drew stares from the arriving delegates. Elias noted the reactions, admiring glances from Valthar females, curious looks from human diplomats, and barely concealed envy from a few bronze-clad Valthar nobles who hadn't warmed to the new reality. Korath, now a reluctant ally after his defeat, stood at attention near the throne, his red eyes fixed on the crowd. His conversion had been grudging but genuine, spurred by Elisra's undeniable power. Elias caught his eye and nodded, earning a stiff bow in return. Progress, Elias muttered to Silvara. Indeed, she replied, ascending the crystalline throne with Elisra in her arms. Representatives of Earth and the Valthar Covenant, she began, her voice filling the chamber with divine authority, we gather to forge an alliance not of war or necessity but of unity. Elias stepped forward, his diplomatic tunic feeling less awkward now. And let's be clear, he added, his smirk drawing chuckles, this unity's more than politics, it's personal. He gestured to Elisra, who babbled and sparked a holographic display of the tundra, earning gasps. Silvara's eyes sparkled with mischief. Our compatibility has proven remarkable, as some of you may have heard. The crowd erupted in murmurs, some shocked, some amused. In the 3 months since Elisra's birth, human-Valthar pairings had surged, each producing hybrids with unique abilities, enhanced neural interfaces, accelerated learning, and genetic stability that silenced the purists. The old myths about human weakness are done, a Valthar noble declared, their silver skin gleaming. The Covenant evolves. Elias raised an eyebrow at Silvara. Should I be worried about how many of your people are verifying that? Jealous my heart. She teased, her hand brushing his arm, making his tunic feel suddenly too warm. Not a chance, he said, his grin wicked, though I'm pretty sure I set the bar high. The chamber laughed, the tension breaking. Elisra chose that moment to project a hollow of her parents' first meeting, a sanitized version that still drew blushes. Our daughter has her father's flair, Silvara said, recovering smoothly, and her mother's divinity. The diplomatic talks that followed were unlike any in galactic history. Human pragmatism clashed and blended with Valthar mysticism, forging agreements that reshaped trade, tech, and borders. Elisra, alternating between human giggles and Valthar chants, became a symbol of what was possible, a child who could rewrite systems with a thought, born of two species daring to defy the impossible. During a recess, Elias leaned close to Silvara, his voice low. When I crashed on your planet, I didn't expect to rewrite the galaxy. You expected to survive the storm, she replied, her crystalline nails tracing his jaw. Instead, you ignited a new one. Korath approached, his bronze armor clanking, a stack of hollow tablets in hand. He stopped short at their intimacy, his red eyes narrowing. Priestess Lord Voss, the Genetic Council's findings are in. Let me guess, Elias said, unfazed. More proof we're awesome together. Korath's jaw twitched, but he pressed on. The success of human-Valthar pairings correlates with emotional resonance. Fancy term for chemistry, Silvara said, her smile making Korath visibly struggle to maintain composure. Elisra burbled, sparking another light show that drew every eye. Her powers grew daily, a blend of human adaptability and Valthar energy that promised a future neither species could predict. To think, Silvara murmured, all this because you crashed on my tundra. Best crash ever, Elias said, wrapping an arm around her waist, or as high as he could reach. Though I'm pretty sure you were checking me out before you called me a captive. I was assessing a threat, she said, her tone playful. Is that what we're calling it now? Their banter was cut short by more delegates, eager to expand human-Valthar alliances to their systems. The future gleamed bright, charged with the kind of chemistry that had already changed the stars. The grand diplomatic chamber of the divine spire hummed with a new energy, its obsidian walls and crystalline circuits pulsing in sync with the presence of Elisra, the hybrid child who had become the galaxy's most improbable beacon. A year had passed since her birth, and the ripples of that moment had reshaped the stars. Elias Voss stood beside Priestess Silvara, his diplomatic tunic now a familiar second skin, its obsidian fabric catching the violet glow of the chamber. His augmented left eye scanned the crowd, human diplomats in sleek uniforms, Valthar nobles in shimmering robes, and hybrid emissaries whose glowing skin marked them as the next generation of a united cosmos. Elisra, now a toddler with a mischievous grin that mirrored Elias and eyes that flickered between gray and emerald, toddled between them, her tiny hands sparking hollow displays with a giggle. Careful, kiddo, Elias said, scooping her up as a nearby console projected a chaotic swirl of stars, drawing gasps from the delegates. You're gonna rewrite the galactic map before lunch. Silvara's resonant laugh filled the chamber, her golden skin radiant in her priestess regalia. She takes after her father's penchant for disruption, she teased, her crystalline hair cascading like a starfield, though I suspect her mother's divinity guides her hand. Divinity, huh? Elias shot back, winking. Pretty sure that's just my charm rubbing off. Elisra babbled, and the chamber's lights pulsed, dimming and brightening in a playful rhythm that made even the stoic Valthar nobles smile. Her powers had grown exponentially, her hybrid genetics blending human adaptability with Valthar bioenergy, allowing her to interface with technology in ways that baffled both species' scientists. She could rewrite code with a thought, sync with crystal circuits across light years, and even influence emotions, calming tensions with a coup or sparking awe with a wave. The human-Valthar alliance, once a fragile truce, had solidified into a galactic coalition, with Outpost Epsilon now a thriving hub of cross-species innovation. The past year had been a whirlwind. The Battle of Epsilon had ended with Korath's surrender, his bronze-clad zealots cowed by Elisra's birth and the undeniable proof of her power. The Valthar Covenant, once rigid in its orthodoxy, had fractured and reformed, with Silvara's faction, bolstered by hybrid births gaining dominance. Human colonies, initially wary, now embraced the partnership, their tech advancing by leaps thanks to Valthar crystal engineering. Elias, no longer just a xenobiologist but a de facto ambassador, had navigated countless summits, his quick wit and stubborn courage earning respect even from those who'd once scoffed at humans. But not all was peaceful. Pockets of resistance lingered, Valthar purists who viewed hybrids as abominations and human skeptics who feared the alliance's rapid evolution. Elias HUD pinged daily with reports of sabotage, whispered conspiracies, and rogue factions stirring unrest. The crystal shard, now embedded in his suit's neural interface, kept him linked to Silvara and Elisra, its pulse a constant reminder of the stakes. I've got a galaxy to hold together, he muttered, adjusting Elisra in his arms as a new delegate approached, a human governor with a cautious smile. Lord Voss, Priestess Silvara, the governor said, bowing slightly, your daughter's abilities are remarkable. Our colony's proposing a joint research initiative to study hybrid genetics. Could be a game changer. Game changer's one word for it, Elias replied, his grin sharp. Just don't expect her to sit still for your scans. She's got places to be. Elisra giggled, sparking a hollow of the governor's face, slightly distorted with a comical mustache. The chamber erupted in laughter, and Silvara's emerald eyes sparkled with mischief. She has her father's humor, she said, smoothing Elisra's golden-tan curls. But we welcome collaboration. Our daughter is proof of what's possible. The governor nodded, retreating with a mix of awe and unease. Elias leaned close to Silvara, his voice low. Think they're ready for what she'll do when she hits puberty. Let's survive her toddler years first, Silvara quipped, her crystalline nails brushing his arm, sending a familiar shiver through him. Though I suspect you'll enjoy the chaos. Born for it, he said, winking. Their banter was interrupted by a sharp beep from his suit, a priority alert from Outpost Epsilon. He tapped the neural interface, and Captain Maria Reyes' scarred face appeared on a private hollow. Voss, we've got trouble, Reyes said, her voice tight. Rogue Valthar faction hit one of our outer relays. They're broadcasting anti-hybrid propaganda and they've got tech we've never seen, looks like modified crystal weapons. Elias' jaw clenched, the shard pulsing in warning. Korath, no, he's still playing nice, Reyes replied. This is someone new calling themselves the Obsidian Veil. They're demanding Silvara step down and Elisra be contained. Silvara's expression darkened, her golden skin flaring. Contained, my daughter is no threat to be caged. Tell that to their plasma cannons, Reyes said. They're massing near the tundra's edge. We need you both here now. Elias exchanged a glance with Silvara, her emerald eyes blazing with a priestess's fury. We're coming, he said, cutting the feed. He handed Elisra to a trusted Valthar aide, a silver-skinned female who bowed deeply. Keep her safe, he told her, his tone leaving no room for debate. The divine spire cut through the ion storm with eerie grace, its crystalline hull reflecting the violet lightning as it descended toward outpost Epsilon. Elias stood on the bridge, his exosuit back in place, its neural link humming as he synced with the ship's systems. Silvara, in her battle regalia, radiated divine authority, her plasma staff crackling at her side. The shard's connection kept them in sync, their emotions a shared current of resolve and protectiveness. Obsidian Veil, Silvara said, her voice low as she studied the tactical hollow. A splinter group from the old orthodoxy led by Archon Veil. He was exiled for rejecting my reforms. Sounds like a charmer, Elias said, his augmented eye scanning the enemy fleet, sleek obsidian-hulled ships with crystal weapons that pulsed erratically. Those weapons are juiced up, my suit's picking up unstable energy signatures, they're playing with fire. Then we extinguish it, Silvara said, her fangs gleaming. Elisra's future depends on it. The outpost came into view, its domes bristling with railguns and kinetic barriers. Human skiffs darted through the storm, trading fire with the Veil's ships. Elias took the helm, his suit's neural link letting him outmaneuver the enemy's erratic salvos. Hold on, Priestess, he said, banking the divine spire through a lightning strike. This is gonna get bumpy. The battle was chaos incarnate. The Veil's weapons unleashed torrents of crystal energy, each shot destabilizing the outpost's defenses. Elias' tactics, unpredictable and human, kept the divine spire one step ahead, redirecting enemy fire into their own ranks. Silvara's staff flared, amplifying the ship's shields with her bioenergy, a feat that left the Valthar crew in awe. You're stealing my thunder, Elias quipped, dodging a plasma beam. You'll survive, she shot back, her smile fierce. Focus on not crashing again. The shard pulsed and Elias felt Elisra's presence, safe but agitated, her energy reaching out even from the divine spire's nursery. She knows we're fighting, he said, his voice tight. We need to end this fast. The Veil's flagship, a jagged monstrosity called Ebon Wrath, loomed ahead, its weapons targeting the outpost's core reactor. Elias HUD flagged Archon Veil's biosignature aboard, a Valthar male with jet black skin and eyes like molten amber. Time to meet the boss, Elias said, plotting an intercept course. Silvara nodded, her staff glowing brighter. Veil will answer for his treason. The divine spire breached the Ebon Wrath's defenses, boarding pods slamming into its hull. Elias led the assault, his suit's stealth mode flickering as he carved through Veil's soldiers with precise stunner shots. Silvara followed, her plasma staff a whirlwind of violet fire, each strike sending enemies reeling. They reached the command deck where Veil stood, his amber eyes burning with fanaticism. You've defiled the Covenant, Veil roared, raising a crystal lance that crackled with unstable energy. Your spawn will unravel our divinity. Elias dodged a lance strike, the energy scorching his suit's shoulder. Buddy, your divinity's looking pretty outdated, he said, planting a micro-explosive at Veil's feet. The blast staggered the Archon, giving Silvara an opening. Her staff met his lance, their energies clashing in a burst that shook the deck. You cannot stop the future, Silvara said, her voice resonating with divine power. Elisra is our strength, not our ruin. The shard flared and Elias felt Elisra's presence surge, her energy flooding the Ebon Wrath systems. Consoles sparked, weapons powered down, and Veil's lance flickered out. The Archon staggered, his amber eyes wide with disbelief. What is this? That's my daughter, Elias said, his grin sharp as he leveled his stunner. And she's done playing. Veil's forces surrendered as Elisra's influence spread, her hybrid power pacifying the Veil's tech and minds alike. The battle ended in a wave of silence, the iron storm outside calming as if in reverence. Elias and Silvara stood over Veil, who knelt, his defiance broken. The Covenant evolves, he whispered, echoing Silvara's words from months ago. Back on the divine spire, Elias cradled Elisra, her glowing skin warm against his chest. Silvara leaned against him, her crystalline hair brushing his shoulder. She's more powerful than we imagine, Silvara said, her voice soft with awe. Yeah, Elias agreed, watching Elisra spark a tiny hollow of the tundra. But she's got your heart and my stubbornness, we'll keep her grounded. The galaxy shifted in the years that followed. The human-Valthar alliance grew, with hybrid children, each unique in their abilities, becoming ambassadors of a new era. Outpost Epsilon expanded into a bustling metropolis, its domes now laced with crystal circuits that hummed with Elisra's influence. Elias and Silvara, now partners in every sense, balanced diplomacy with parenting, their bond a beacon for others. Elisra at 5 could reshape entire systems with a thought, but her favorite trick was making her father's suit dance during summits, much to the delight of delegates. One evening, as the iron storm painted the tundra in violet hues, Elias and Silvara stood on a balcony overlooking the outpost, Elisra asleep in their quarters. Didn't think crashing here would lead to this, Elias said, his arm around Silvara's waist or as high as he could reach. You expected to survive, she replied, her emerald eyes glinting. Instead, you forge a family and a future. Best crash landing ever, he said, pulling her close. Her laugh echoed across the tundra, a sound that promised more storms and more stars to come.
Through the silent darkness of space, a long silver-black spacecraft glided like a blade slicing through the fabric of the universe. Its streamlined hull reflected the cold glimmer of distant stars, while the low hum of the gravitic engines resonated through its core. Inside, the only sound was the rhythmic hiss of the life support systems. In the softly illuminated lounge, bathed in pale blue light, sat two figures, a man and a woman, brother and sister. Their faces were tense, focused, as if carved from stone. Elian, tall and broad-shouldered, with sharp cheekbones and short steel-gray hair, stared out of the viewport at the infinite cosmos. His cold, storm-gray eyes betrayed nothing, but beneath the surface, a storm was raging. I never thought it would end like this, he said in a low voice without turning. Exiled, like criminals. Sarah sat opposite him, her knees drawn up to her chest. Her silvery white hair fell across her face, and her amber eyes burned like molten metal. Criminals, she scoffed, her voice rough with suppressed anger. We're the only ones who dare to speak the truth. We never belonged to them, Elian. We were never part of their so-called collective. Elian turned his gaze toward her, his expression a mixture of exhaustion and pain. And what now? He asked, spreading his hands slightly. We're heading to some primitive planet, full of beings who know nothing about us, nothing about our technology, nothing about our past. Earth. Even a name sounds clumsy. Sarah rose sharply to her feet, her figure outlined by the sleek black bodysuit with silver accents that hug her athletic frame. Better to be exiled than live in a cage, she said firmly, her voice ringing in the cold silence. I won't regret what we did. Elian closed his eyes, inhaling deeply. He knew there was no point in arguing. His sister had always been fire, untamed, unyielding, and untouchable. He, on the other hand, was ice. Fire and ice. Yet somehow, that balance was the only thing keeping them alive. The ship's navigation AI came to life with a calm, synthetic voice. Entering planetary atmosphere, Earth. Estimated time to contact, 3 minutes. Prepare for extreme G-forces. Elian tightened his harness, checking the seat locks twice. Sarah followed his example, but her amber eyes gleamed with anticipation rather than fear. Have you even thought about what comes next? He asked quietly, eyes fixed ahead. We have no home, no status, no allies. We're strangers. We'll start over, she shot back, her tone sharp and steady. This time, on our own terms. The moment the craft entered Earth's atmosphere, the hull began to tremble violently. Waves of heat rolled over the outer layers, plasma licking across the shields like living fire. Sarah shut her eyes, her heartbeat thundering in her ears. Then, impact. The ship tore through cloud cover and slammed into the ground with a deafening roar, carving a smoking trench into the dense underbrush on the outskirts of a massive human city. A haze of steam rose from the hull. Elian unfastened his harness and stood slowly, his muscles tense. Through the fractured canopy, the city lights glimmered in the distance. Towering structures, glowing highways, rivers of neon weaving through the darkness. Welcome to Earth, he muttered grimly. The airlock hatch slid open with a metallic hiss, releasing a gust of warm, humid air. Outside, a crowd of humans had gathered, their primitive floodlights glaring into Elian's eyes. Armed soldiers formed a perimeter, weapons raised and ready. Don't move, someone barked in harsh, clipped English. Elian slowly raised his hands, showing he was unarmed. Sarah mirrored his gesture, but kept her gaze cold, almost defiant. From behind the soldiers stepped a tall man in a dark suit, flanked by 2 guards. His stern face carried an edge of authority, and his sharp blue eyes studied them with a mix of caution and curiosity. My name is Colonel Richard Crow, he said, his voice calm but commanding. I represent the United Earth Council. Who are you, and why have you entered our airspace unannounced? Sarah's lips curled into the faintest smirk, but Elian stepped forward before she could speak. We didn't invade, he said firmly, his voice deep and steady. We were exiled from our homeworld. My name is Elian, and this is my sister, Sarah. We seek no conflict. Crow regarded them for several long seconds, his jaw tight, then gave a short nod to his men. Lower your weapons, he ordered. They're coming with me. They were taken to an underground facility, endless white walls, mirrored panels, and surveillance cameras in every corner. Elian and Sarah were separated for questioning. Elian sat across from Colonel Crow and a team of scientists, the table between them glowing faintly with holographic displays of the crashed ship and biological scans of their bodies. So, Crow leaned forward, folding his hands. You're telling me you were exiled. For what exactly? Elian hesitated for a brief second before answering. For thinking, he said quietly. On Valtarian, there is no I. There is only we. The collective controls everything. We believed individuality mattered, that freedom was strength, not weakness. For that, we became dangerous. The scientists exchanged hushed glances. Crow raised an eyebrow, leaning back in his chair. So you're dissidents, he said slowly, almost amused. Interesting. Meanwhile, in another room, Sarah was being questioned by a different team. Her interrogation was more volatile, her voice sharp, her temper barely restrained. She refused to explain too much, meeting every question with suspicion. Hours later, they were finally released into a small, bare room containing 2 narrow beds and a single console. Elian found his sister seated cross-legged on one of the beds, her arms folded tightly across her chest. They don't trust us, she muttered, staring at the floor. And they shouldn't, Elian replied simply. Not yet. She looked up, fire burning behind her amber eyes. Then we'll make them trust us. Elian didn't argue, but deep inside, he knew the truth. Earth wasn't a sanctuary. It was an arena, and the real battle hadn't even begun. The first few days on Earth blurred into a haze of blinding lights, endless questioning, and constant surveillance. Elian and Sarah were confined to a secure research facility deep beneath the surface, surrounded by pale walls and emotionless faces. Humans in white coats hovered around them like curious insects, probing, scanning, measuring. Sarah hated it. She paced restlessly in their small room, fingers tapping against her thigh, her amber eyes burning with defiance. They treat us like specimens, she hissed, stopping suddenly. Not guests, not even prisoners. Specimens. Elian leaned against the wall, arms crossed, his gray eyes fixed on her. What did you expect? We fall out of the sky, dress like this, and tell them we're from another star. Of course, they're afraid. I'm not afraid, she shot back. No, he said, his tone flat, but you should be. Fear makes humans unpredictable. We need to be careful. A soft chime announced the arrival of visitors. The door slid open, revealing 2 human officers in dark tactical uniforms. One was tall and broad-shouldered with short dark hair and sharp blue eyes. The other, leaner, with tousled blonde hair and an easy expression that barely masked tension. I'm Lieutenant Jason Cole, said the taller one, his voice clipped and professional. He gestured to his partner. This is Sergeant Ryan Hale. We've been assigned as your security detail. Sarah arched a brow. Security? You mean guards? Ryan gave a small, cautious smile. Call it whatever makes you comfortable. Our job is to make sure nothing happens to you, and that you don't accidentally start World War III. Elian straightened, studying the men carefully. He didn't trust them, but he respected honesty when he heard it. Days turned into weeks, and the initial tension between the aliens and their human hosts began to shift. Elian spent hours studying human history through the facility's terminals, absorbing everything from philosophy to warfare. Sarah, meanwhile, wandered wherever the guards allowed, testing boundaries constantly. She found herself drawn to Ryan, his curiosity, his quiet humor, his patience with her endless questions. He explained things others wouldn't. The city above, the way humans communicated without words, the strange rituals of Earth's cultures. One evening, as they stood by a window overlooking the underground cityscape of glowing corridors, she asked, Do you ever wonder what's out there, beyond your little planet? Ryan hesitated before answering. Every day, his gaze flicked toward her. But looking at you, I think I'm finally starting to understand how small we really are. Sarah's lips curved slightly, though she said nothing. Across the facility, Elian trained with Jason in one of the simulation chambers. Jason wanted to test their combat abilities, and Elian obliged without hesitation. The humans quickly learned he was faster, stronger, more precise than they could have imagined. But Elian also learned something unexpected. Jason was a soldier who valued discipline, loyalty, and strategy. In another life, on another world, they might have been allies. Late one night, alarms blared through the facility. Elian and Sarah shot upright in their beds as red lights bathed the walls. The door hissed open, and Jason stormed in. Stay with me, he barked. This isn't a drill. Sarah grabbed her boots, pulling them on as she demanded. What's happening? Jason's jaw was tight. We don't know yet. Power fluctuations. Possible breach. Elian's stomach clenched. He'd seen sabotage before, and this felt too familiar. As they moved quickly through the hallways, Ryan joined them, his face pale but determined. He fell in a step beside Sarah, handing her a compact human-made weapon. Just in case, he muttered. She glanced at it, then at him, one brow raised. You're arming me? I'm trusting you, he corrected softly. Somewhere deep in the facility, a low rumble shook the floor beneath their feet. Elian slowed for a fraction of a second, his instincts screaming. This wasn't a human attack. Someone, or something, from Valtarian had found them, and it was only the beginning. The tension in the facility thickened over the following days. Whatever had triggered the alarms wasn't discussed openly, but Elian noticed the subtle changes. More guards, more encrypted channels, more whispered conversations between officers who thought he wasn't listening. Sarah noticed it too, though she cared less about military movements and more about the shifting energy in the air and instinctual awareness that something was closing in on them. They know more than they're telling us, she murmured one night as she sat cross-legged on her bed, absently twisting a strand of silvery hair between her fingers. Elian leaned against the wall, arms folded, silent for a long moment before replying. They're scared, and they should be. She frowned, amber eyes sharp. You think this is about us? He nodded slightly. I think someone followed us here. The next day, they were summoned to a strategy briefing led by Colonel Crow himself. The air in the room felt heavy as holographic projections lit up, displaying patterns of unusual energy readings orbiting Earth. These signatures appeared 72 hours ago. Crow began, his voice steady but strained. Our satellites picked up multiple unidentified objects holding a high altitude. They're cloaked, but not perfectly. We believe they're observing us, observing you. Sarah crossed her arms, her tone sharp. Then you should assume they're from Valtharian. Ryan, standing at her side, glanced at her quickly but said nothing. Crow's eyes narrowed. If that's true, what do they want? Elian stepped forward, his voice low and deliberate. Control. They don't tolerate dissent. To them, we're an infection, and if they believe we're contaminating this planet, they won't hesitate to remove the threat. Silence fell over the room. Jason finally broke it. So what's our play? Crow's jaw tightened. We prepare for the possibility of hostile contact. But for now, we keep this contained. Public panic helps no one. Life in the facility became even more restricted. Sarah was frustrated, pacing the halls like a caged predator. Ryan shadowed her whenever she was allowed outside their quarters, his quiet presence grounding her in a way she didn't want to admit. Late one evening, she found him sitting alone in one of the observation domes, staring up at the simulated starfield projected on the curved glass ceiling. You don't sleep much, she said, stepping inside. Ryan gave a small, tired smile. Hard to sleep when the universe feels like it's shrinking around you. She sat beside him, close enough that their shoulders brushed, but said nothing. For a while, they watched the illusion of distant galaxies spinning above them. Then Ryan spoke softly. I know you don't trust us, and I can't blame you. But if this turns into a fight, I want you to know something. Sarah turned to face him, her amber eyes catching the soft glow of the lights. What? I'm on your side, he said simply. For the first time since arriving on Earth, Sarah didn't reply with sarcasm or suspicion. Instead, she just held his gaze and quietly nodded. Meanwhile, Elian trained with Jason in the lower levels of the facility, running combat simulations designed to test their synergy. At first, they clashed, Jason frustrated by Elian's cold precision, Elian dismissive of Jason's reliance on human tactics. But over time, something shifted. You fight like you're anticipating threats I don't even see, Jason admitted one afternoon, breathing hard after a particularly brutal sparring session. Elian wiped sweat from his brow, his voice even. Because I am. Jason narrowed his eyes. So you know they're coming. Elian met his gaze. I've never been more certain of anything in my life. Before Jason could respond, the lights in the chamber flickered. An alarm sounded, soft, almost muted but urgent. Elian froze, every instinct on edge. Jason's calm bust. He answered, listening silently, then looked up at Elian, his expression grim. They've breached orbit, Jason said quietly. Elian's jaw tightened. Then it begins. The Valtharian recon ships had arrived. But what neither Elian nor Sarah knew was that the enemy had already been preparing for weeks, embedding hidden operatives on Earth, infiltrating human networks, and watching their every move. The game had started long before they realized it, and someone inside the facility was already working against them. The facility's silence was deceptive. Beneath the sterile white walls and endless corridors, something unseen was tightening its grip. Every day brought more restrictions, more armed patrols, more locked doors. Elian noticed first. He always did. Small irregularities, shifts in guard rotations, encrypted transmissions late at night, power fluctuations isolated to their sector. Valtharian tactics. Sarah, restless as ever, bristled under the increasing control. They're hiding something, she muttered, pacing their quarters. They're preparing, Elian corrected, watching her carefully. And not for us. They know what's coming. She stopped, fixing him with a sharp amber gaze. And you're certain it's them? He nodded slowly. I can feel them. The council won't leave us alive, Sarah. Not after what we did. 2 nights later, the proof arrived. Elian woke to the faintest vibration in the floor, so subtle most wouldn't notice. But he knew this rhythm, the precise gravimetric resonance of Valtharian stealth craft entering low orbit. Before he could react, the facility's internal comms flared. Code Crimson. Level 7 lockdown. All security teams mobilize. Jason and Ryan burst into their quarters seconds later, weapons ready. They've breached our outer perimeter, Jason said grimly. Crow wants you both in command now. As they raced through the halls, Elian glanced at Ryan. Human defenses won't hold. You're underestimating what's coming. Ryan shot him a quick, sharp look. Then you'd better start telling us what we're up against. Command was chaos. Colonels shouted orders over holographic projections. Satellite feeds showed 4 faint distortions moving high above Earth's atmosphere, invisible to radar, but glowing faintly under specialized scans. Crow stood at the center, barking instructions. When Elian and Sarah entered, his expression hardened. They're here for you, aren't they? Crow's voice was low but sharp. Elian didn't hesitate. Yes, and they won't stop. Sarah stepped forward, chin lifted defiantly. Then let us fight. The room went silent. Jason exchanged a quick glance with Crow. You're not leaving this facility, Crow said firmly. If they want you, they'll have to go through us. Elian's jaw tightened. They will go through you, he said flatly. You've never faced them. You don't understand what they are. Later that night, Sarah sat with Ryan in the observation dome, the stars above shifting as defense satellites aligned. "You're scared," she said softly, not as an accusation but a statement of fact. Ryan didn't deny it. "I'd be stupid not to be." He turned to her, his voice quiet. "But you? You don't look afraid." Sarah's amber eyes reflected the artificial starlight. "I learned a long time ago that fear doesn't save you. Action does." Ryan studied her for a moment, then shook his head with a small, incredulous smile. "You sound like someone who's been fighting her whole life." She didn't respond because she had. Meanwhile, deep in the lower sectors, Elian confronted Jason in the training hall. "You've been holding back," Jason said after their sparring session, his voice edged with frustration. "You know something we don't? Tell me." Elian hesitated, then finally spoke. "The council won't send negotiators. They'll send purifiers. Elite units bred for one purpose: eradication. If they've arrived, it's already too late for diplomacy." Jason's brows furrowed. "Then we prepare for war." Elian shook his head. "You're preparing for the wrong kind of war. You're thinking soldiers and rifles. I'm thinking infiltration." Jason's expression sharpened. "You think they're already here?" "I know they are," Elian replied. The first sign came hours later. A blackout. Just 10 seconds. Lights, sensors, doors. But in those 10 seconds, 2 guards vanished without trace. Sarah and Ryan discovered one of them moments after power returned. Slumped against a wall, alive but unresponsive, his pupils dilated, veins darkening under his skin. Ryan crouched, checking his vitals. "What the hell?" Elian arrived seconds later, his voice like steel. "Neural override. They've infiltrated the system." Crow ordered a full lockdown, but Elian knew better. Lockdowns didn't matter. The purifiers weren't here to negotiate. At 3:17, the attack began. The facility's perimeter defenses lit up with automatic fire as shadows moved at impossible speed across the outer fields. Energy discharges cut through reinforced plating like paper. Human soldiers fell before they even understood what they were fighting. Jason and Ryan led the counterteams, coordinating with Elian as chaos erupted around them. Sarah fought beside Ryan, adapting quickly to the crude human weapons. Her movements were precise, fluid, lethal. One purifier lunged from the darkness, and she dropped it with a clean shot to the throat, the alien collapsing without a sound. "Not bad," Ryan panted, reloading. Sarah flashed him a sharp grin. "You haven't seen anything yet." By the time the first wave ended, 34 soldiers were dead. The facility's western wing was in ruins. But they'd held. For now. Inside command, Crow slammed a fist against the console. "That was reconnaissance. They were testing us." Elian stood at the center of the room, his expression carved from stone. "No, that was a warning." Sarah leaned against the wall, wiping blood from her cheek. "Then what happens when they stop warning us?" Elian turned slowly, his gray eyes colder than ice. "Then," he said quietly, "the real war begins." The dawn above the facility came without sunlight. High in Earth's atmosphere, cloaked Valtarian warships drifted like silent predators, their obsidian hulls invisible to human radar, but glowing faintly in Elian's senses like distant thunder. He stood at the edge of the observation deck, arms folded, watching nothing, but feeling everything. "They've positioned 3 carriers above the southern hemisphere," he said quietly, not turning as Jason approached behind him. Jason stopped, his boots silent on the reinforced floor. "We still can't see them," he admitted, his jaw tight. "But I believe you." Elian's gray eyes stayed fixed on the darkness beyond the glass. "They're not here to scare us anymore. That was yesterday. Today, they're coming to finish what they started." Jason hesitated. "Then we fight." Elian finally turned his gaze on him. Cold, sharp, calculating. "No, you survive. That's different." Hours later, the facility's war room was packed. Holographic maps glowed over the table, tracking faint disturbances in orbit where human sensors strained to keep up. Colonel Crow stood at the head, pale but unflinching. "An invasion force of unknown size is inbound," he said, voice clipped. "We assume they're here for Elian and Sarah, but until we know for certain, we prepare for full engagement." Sarah leaned against the wall, her amber eyes flashing under the harsh lights. "You'll lose," she said flatly. "Your weapons, your defenses, all your clever systems, they're obsolete against Valtarian tech." Crow turned to her sharply. "Then what do you suggest? Surrender?" "No," she said, pushing off the wall, her movements smooth and predatory. "I suggest you let us lead." Jason exchanged a glance with Ryan, who was standing near the console, tense but silent. Crow's jaw worked, but before he could reply, the lights above them dimmed. Once, twice, then stabilized. Elian straightened instantly. They penetrated the outer net. At 1932, the first Valtarian carrier decloaked. It filled the skies above the region like an eclipse, its angular black silhouette blotting out the stars. Its surface shimmered faintly as thousands of hexagonal armor plates shifted and locked into attack formation. Sarah stood on the upper platform with Ryan, staring up at the holographic projection. "That's a command dreadnought," she whispered. "They didn't send recon units this time. They sent judgment." Ryan glanced at her sidelong. "I hate the way you say that so calmly." She didn't answer. The attack began with sound. A low-frequency pulse rolled across the ground, vibrating deep in bone and muscle. Humans clutched their ears, staggering under the invisible weight, while Elian and Sarah stood unaffected, their alien physiology built for resonance. Then came the light. Dozens of energy projectiles fell from the dreadnought's underside, cutting through the night like burning comets. Impact after impact erupted along the perimeter, tearing through human defenses in waves of fire and twisted metal. "West barricade down," a voice screamed over comms. "We're losing sectors 3 and 4. Jason's voice cut through the chaos. "Seal off the lower passages. Contain them where we can." Elian was already moving, his steps silent, his presence sharp as a blade. "Jason, with me. Ryan, keep Sarah alive." Sarah shot him a glare. "I don't need protecting." Ryan smirked faintly, sliding a fresh magazine into his rifle. "Good. Saves me the trouble." By the time they reached the west wing, the corridor was filled with smoke and shadows. Valtharian purifiers moved like liquid metal, their armor shifting seamlessly to deflect human bullets. Their weapons were elegant, slender plasma lances designed to pierce reinforced alloys. Jason raised his rifle, fired twice. The round sparked harmlessly off a purifier's shifting plates. "They're adapting," Elian said calmly, stepping forward. "Aim for the joints." Jason cursed under his breath, but adjusted, his next shot striking true. The purifier dropped soundlessly, its armor liquefying into a pool of black nanite residue. For a moment, there was quiet. Then an explosion ripped through the ceiling, showering them with debris. Elian shoved Jason clear, the shockwave hurling them into opposite walls. Through the smoke, more purifiers surged forward, 10, 20, maybe more. Elian activated the embedded nodes along his forearms, bioluminescent veins flaring faint blue as Valtharian combat enhancements woke beneath his skin. Jason froze, startled, as Elian moved with unnatural speed, intercepting the nearest attacker and slamming it into the wall hard enough to dent alloy plating. "You've been holding back," Jason muttered, wiping blood from his cheek. Elian didn't look at him. "You haven't seen me fight yet." Meanwhile, Sarah and Ryan were holding the eastern line. The sounds of battle thundered around them. Plasma fire, screams, collapsing steel. "You take the left, I'll cover the flank," Ryan barked, firing in short, precise bursts. Sarah nodded once, her body flowing through motion like liquid. She vaulted over a fallen barrier, twin energy blades extending from the bracers on her forearms, slicing cleanly through a purifier's armor at the neck. Its body collapsed instantly, lifeless. Ryan blinked. "That's new. Adapt," she snapped, already moving. For a brief moment, their movements synced perfectly. Ryan's disciplined bursts of fire complementing Sarah's lethal precision. The human and the alien fighting as one. And yet, deep beneath the chaos, Sarah felt it. A cold, gnawing certainty that this was only the opening strike. At command, Crow's team struggled to keep up. "Dreadnought deploying ground pods," an analyst shouted. Estimated 2 minutes until they breached Sector 12. Crow slammed his palm on the table. "Divert all reserves." "No." Elian's voice came through comms, steady and unyielding. "Evacuate them. They won't hold Sector 12. That's where they want you focused." Crow hesitated, then swore under his breath. "You're in charge of that sector now." Elian didn't reply. He was already moving. Then, everything changed. In the depths of the facility, deep inside Sublevel 6, a new alarm triggered, one no one had heard before. Doors locked automatically, sealing entire wings. Power rerouted to unknown sectors. Jason, catching his breath beside Elian, checked his comms. "What the hell was that?" Elian's expression darkened. "Not an external breach. That's inside." Sarah's voice came sharp and urgent over the channel. "Elian, one of your people is already here. They've been inside this whole time." Jason looked at him, stunned. "You're telling me there's a mole in the facility?" Elian's jaw clenched. "Not a mole." His voice dropped, sharp as broken glass. "A purifier, wearing a human skin." The comm went dead. Above them, the dreadnought began to descend. Its shadow swallowed the horizon, its energy core pulsing like a black sun. The war was no longer coming. It was here, and for the first time since they'd arrived on Earth, Elian wasn't sure they would survive. The facility's ruins still smoked from the previous night's battle, the scent of scorched metal and ozone hanging heavy in the air. Emergency crews swarmed the wreckage, dragging injured soldiers out from collapsed sections, while engineers struggled to bring basic systems back online. But beneath the frantic surface, an even greater danger was unfolding. Elian stood on the command balcony overlooking the central atrium, his gray eyes fixed on the glowing tactical display. A dozen red markers pulsed slowly on the map, signals of infiltrators moving inside the facility. "They bypassed every firewall we had," Jason muttered beside him, running a hand over his jaw. "They were in our systems for weeks, weren't they?" Elian nodded once. "Longer. The council planned this months before we arrived. The purifiers weren't just sent to invade. They've been watching us since the beginning." Jason swore under his breath. "And we didn't see it." Elian's jaw tightened, his gaze cold. "They wanted you blind." "It worked." Sarah paced in the room below, anger rolling off her in waves. Ryan leaned against the doorframe, arms folded, watching her silently until she finally exploded. "You knew, didn't you?" she hissed, spinning on her brother as he entered. You felt them coming days ago, Elian. You knew what the purifiers were capable of. And you didn't tell me. Elian closed the door softly behind him. You weren't ready. Not ready. Her amber eyes burned with fury. Do you think I'm a child? Do you think I haven't fought before? We could have been preparing, but instead, we were caught like prey. Ryan stepped forward carefully, placing a hand on her shoulder. Sarah, we don't have time for this right now. She shook him off violently. Don't take a side. You don't understand what it means when they send purifiers. You don't understand what they'll do to us if they win. Elian stepped closer, his voice calm but edged with steel. I understand perfectly. That's why I kept it quiet. I needed them to underestimate us. Sarah laughed bitterly. Underestimate you mean? Their eyes locked, tension sharp enough to cut the air between them. An alarm blared across the facility, cutting the argument short. Unauthorized access detected. Sublevel 6. Containment breach. Jason's voice cracked through the comm. We've got a problem. One of the infiltrators isn't just hacking systems. They're inside. They've disguised themselves as one of ours. Elian froze. A faint vibration rippled along his skin. A resonance only someone like him could feel. It's not just a disguise, he said quietly. It's a full mimic. Ryan's face drained of color. You mean? Elian nodded grimly. A purifier, wearing human DNA like clothing. In sublevel 6, chaos erupted. A squad of Earth security forces cornered a technician who'd been working in the energy sector for months. Unremarkable, quiet, well-liked. But when they tried to detain him, his skin peeled away, revealing smooth, obsidian armor beneath. The purifier moved like liquid shadow, tearing through the first two soldiers before anyone could react. Plasma lanced from its arm, slicing through reinforced bulkheads like paper. Jason's team arrived seconds later, opening fire, but their weapons barely slowed it down. Keep it distracted, Jason shouted. Elian's on his way. Elian arrived without a weapon, his enhancements already surging beneath his skin, bioluminescent veins glowing faintly under the pale lights. He crossed the distance in a blur, tackling the purifier into a wall hard enough to crack alloy plating. For the first time, Jason and Ryan saw Elian fight without restraint. His movements were brutal but precise, his body a living weapon, strikes calculated, every counter anticipating the purifier's next move. But the mimic was relentless, adapting with every passing second. Its black armor shifted in real time, reshaping itself against his attacks. Elian's breathing grew ragged as he forced it down, slamming it into the floor with a sound that shook the chamber. Finally, he drove his hand into the purifier's chest, disrupting the core node. With a flash of blue light, the creature collapsed, its form liquefying into a pool of nanite residue that hissed softly before evaporating. When the silence settled, Sarah approached slowly, her expression unreadable. That, she said softly, is what you've been hiding from me. Elian met her gaze, his face calm, but his voice heavy. If I told you, would it have changed anything? Yes, she whispered, stepping closer. I would have been ready, but there was no time to argue. A sudden tremor shook the floor beneath them, stronger than before. The lights flickered, and the holographic display above the atrium lit up with a live satellite feed. 3 more Valtharian dreadnoughts had decloaked. Sarah stared at the display, her amber eyes wide. That's not an invasion force, she breathed. That's an extermination fleet. Ryan cursed under his breath. How the hell are we supposed to fight that? Elian stepped forward, his expression colder than steel. We don't fight them here, he said softly. We take the fight to orbit. Crow turned sharply. You're out of your mind. That's suicide. But Elian was already speaking into his comms, calling up data no human should have access to. There's an auxiliary hangar under sublevel 9, he said. My ship can be reactivated. It's the only thing fast enough to reach them before they deploy the final wave. Jason frowned. You're planning on leaving the facility? Elian nodded once. If we wait, this base will be rubble before sunrise. That night, as chaos spread and evacuation alarms blared, Elian, Sarah, Jason, and Ryan prepared for the most dangerous mission yet, boarding the flagship dreadnought in orbit and disabling its command core. But what none of them knew, the leader of the Valtharian Council was already on board, waiting, watching, and he wanted his traitors alive. The night sky above Earth burned with ghostly light. 3 Valtharian dreadnoughts hung in low orbit, their jagged black silhouettes blotting out the stars. The largest, a flagship unlike any Elian had seen before, radiated power in silent waves, its obsidian armor shifting like liquid shadow. Deep below, inside the auxiliary hangar of sublevel 9, Elian's hands moved quickly over the dormant interface of his personal strike craft, the Seraphis. The sleek, needle-shaped ship had been locked and buried by the human military since their arrival, but now it pulsed faintly as its systems roared back to life. Sarah stood a few meters away, arms folded, glaring at him. Her amber eyes were molten in the cold light of the consoles. You kept this hidden too, she said flatly. Elian didn't look up. If they'd known what Seraphis was capable of, the humans would have dismantled her for study. And then we'd have nothing right now. Jason approached, strapping on a combat vest, his rifle slung across his back. This thing's actually space-worthy? Elian's gray eyes flicked toward him briefly. She'll outrun anything you've ever seen. Ryan stepped up beside Sarah, checking his weapon. Then I guess we're going to orbit, he muttered under his breath. Sarah didn't answer. She was still watching her brother, silent tension burning between them. Minutes later, the Seraphis screamed free of the Earth's gravity well, tearing through the upper atmosphere like a silver spear. The engines howled, shattering sonic barriers, until they broke into the silent darkness of orbit. Below them, Earth glimmered in shadow and light. Above, the three dreadnoughts loomed like executioners. Jason gripped the edge of the co-pilot's console, knuckles white. "Tell me we have a plan," he muttered. "We board the flagship," Elian said, calm as stone. Jason's head snapped toward him. "Board it? That's insane. You want us to waltz into the middle of their fleet?" "Not want," Elian corrected. "Need. The other two dreadnoughts take commands from the flagship's core. Disable that, and the entire fleet loses coordination." Ryan swore softly under his breath. "And what exactly are we supposed to do once we're on board?" "Smile and ask them to stand down." Sarah's voice was quiet but sharp, cutting through the tension. "We kill the command node." Elian nodded once, never taking his eyes off the drifting behemoth ahead. "Exactly." As Seraphis approached, the flagship stirred. Its black armor unfolded like metallic petals, revealing inner docking ports lined with defense turrets. "They've seen us," Jason said, his voice tight. Elian's fingers danced over the controls, flipping the ship into evasive maneuvers so violent that Jason swore he felt his stomach shift into his spine. Energy beams lanced past them, burning trails of light into the void. "Hold on," Elian snapped, angling the Seraphis into a tight barrel roll before slicing between two smaller escort fighters. Alarms blared, hull integrity dipping into the red, and then, suddenly, silence. "They stopped shooting," Ryan said, confused. "They're letting us in," Sarah said quietly, her expression cold and unreadable. Jason glanced between them. "And that doesn't bother either of you?" Elian's jaw tightened. "It bothers me more than you know." The Seraphis touched down inside the flagship's hangar bay. The door sealed behind them with a deafening clang. For a moment, there was only the deep hum of the Valtharian engines vibrating through the deck beneath their boots. Then, from the shadows ahead, a column of armored figures stepped forward. 6 purifiers, each taller than Jason, their obsidian armor alive with faint blue veins of energy. And behind them, descending a staircase of shifting black metal, came Kalen Vare, the supreme arbiter of the Valtarian Council. His presence was suffocating, his tall frame draped in flowing battle robes woven with strands of crystalline armor. His skin, pale as ivory, gleamed faintly beneath the lights, and his deep silver eyes locked on Elian with cold, predatory focus. "Elian Vare," he said softly, his voice smooth, calm, and deadly. "My lost blood." Jason stiffened. "Wait, blood." Sarah froze beside Ryan, her chest rising and falling sharply, her gaze snapping to Elian. "Tell me he's lying," she whispered. Elian didn't answer. Kalen's lips curved into something between a smile and a sneer. "You never told him? How curious. My little brother, hiding his shame from the primitives he clings to." Jason stepped forward instinctively, rifle raised, but Elian lifted a hand, stopping him without looking away from Kalen. "This ends here," Elian said quietly. Kalen's expression didn't change. "No, Elian, this begins here. Come home, and Earth survives. Refuse, and I burn this planet down to ash." The silence in the hangar was absolute. Sarah's voice cut through it like shattered glass. "You knew," she said, her words low, trembling with fury. "You knew who you were this whole time, what you are, and you let us walk into this blind." Elian's jaw tightened, but his eyes stayed locked on Kalen's. Jason glanced between them, realizing for the first time the scale of the threat they were facing. "Elian," he said slowly, his voice low, urgent. "If he's your brother, he's not bluffing. We need to leave. Now." "No," Elian said, his voice steady but heavy with something darker than anger. "I've run from him my entire life. That ends tonight." Kalen extended one hand, palm open. "Last chance, little brother." Elian stepped forward slowly, every muscle coiled and ready. "I don't take orders from you anymore." The temperature in the hangar seemed to drop as Kalen's expression hardened into pure cold rage. "So be it." The purifiers attacked. Jason and Ryan opened fire instantly, plasma rounds cutting the darkness as energy bolts tore through the air. Sarah ignited her twin energy blades, spinning through the first 2 purifiers with impossible speed, her movements fluid and lethal. Elian met Kalen head-on. Their clash sent shockwaves rippling through the hangar. 2 Valtarian warriors locked in a brutal dance of precision and power. Sparks cascaded around them as their strikes collided, the very deck plates groaning beneath their weight. But Kalen was stronger, faster. Every strike Elian blocked rattled his bones, and for the first time in years, he felt his body straining to keep pace. "You've weakened," Kalen hissed, his hand locking around Elian's wrist. "Earth has softened you." Elian's gray eyes blazed as his bioluminescent veins flared brighter, flooding his system with stored energy. "No," he said, forcing Kalen back a step. "Earth made me dangerous." A single blast tore through the chaos. Not from a purifier, not from Kalen. From behind them, Jason collapsed to one knee, clutching his side, smoke rising from the wound. Ryan spun around, eyes wide, weapon raised. Behind them, Standing on the Seraphis ramp was Colonel Crow, a Valtarian disruptor rifle in his hands. Sarah froze, disbelief written across her face. Crow? His expression was calm, cold, unapologetic. You really thought, he said quietly, that the council came here without help? Jason was on the floor, blood pooling beneath his side, his breath shallow and ragged. Ryan dragged him behind a fallen support beam, firing bursts of plasma to hold the line. Sarah stood frozen for a heartbeat, disbelief clawing through her chest as she stared at Colonel Crow, the man who had sworn to protect them. You're working with them, she breathed, her voice low, shaking with restrained fury. Crow leveled the Valtarian disruptor rifle at her without hesitation. I was never working with them, he said coldly. I'm one of them. And then, before their eyes, his human skin rippled, peeling away like liquid light, revealing sleek, dark gray Valtarian armor beneath. His body elongated, features sharpening into something alien and predatory. His silver eyes glowed faintly as he dropped the rifle and extended his arm into a morphing plasma blade. Sarah's amber eyes widened, her voice breaking. Elian, he's a purifier. Kalen's cold smile deepened, his voice like a knife. Did you really think you escaped us, brother? Crow has been here since before you arrived. We've been waiting for this moment. Elian's entire body went still, his fists clenched, his breath steady but slow. Every muscle screamed for action, but his gray eyes burned with something else, not rage. Focus, Ryan. Elian barked, his voice sharp, commanding. Get Jason out. Now. Ryan hesitated, torn, glancing at the chaos around them. You'll die if we leave you. Go. Elian roared, and for the first time, Ryan didn't argue. He pulled Jason up, half dragging him toward the Seraphis as Sarah and Elian turned to face Kalen and the purifier together. The hangar exploded into motion. Kalen charged first, his crystalline glaive slicing through the air with blinding speed. Elian met him head-on, their strikes colliding with a deafening crack, shockwaves shaking the deck beneath their boots. Crow, no, the purifier, lunged for Sarah, his plasma blade carving burning arcs through the air. She ducked low, her twin energy blades flashing, parrying his attacks with precision. Sparks cascaded with every clash, her movements a blur of speed and feral grace. Stay with me, Sarah, Elian shouted, barely catching Kalen's strike before it split him in two. Her breath ragged, Sarah rolled beneath a slicing blow and stabbed upward, embedding one of her blades deep into Crow's armor. He roared, jerking back, molten nanite fluid spilling from the wound. But Crow wasn't slowing. If anything, he was evolving, his damaged armor reshaping into brutal, jagged edges, adapting with every second. Kalen knocked Elian back against a bulkhead with a powerful kick, sparks erupting as metal crumpled under the impact. He stepped forward slowly, his crystalline glaive humming with power. You're fighting for them? Kalen's voice was soft, disappointed, almost mournful. For humans? Weak, primitive creatures who barely deserve their own planet. Elian spat blood and stood, his glowing veins pulsing brighter beneath his skin, his voice steady and cold. I'm fighting for choice. Kalen's silver eyes narrowed. Then you've chosen death. Their next clash was brutal, faster, louder, more desperate. Energy rippled around them with each impact, their strikes leaving deep gashes in the deck plates. Across the hangar, Sarah screamed as Crow's blade grazed her shoulder, searing flesh and armor alike. She staggered, but before Crow could finish her, Ryan appeared from nowhere, firing a concentrated plasma round that tore through Crow's midsection. Crow dropped to one knee, snarling, his armor rippling violently as it struggled to heal. Sarah grabbed Ryan's arm, panting hard. Take Jason and get him to Seraphis, she barked, her amber eyes blazing. We'll hold him off. Ryan hesitated, then nodded once, dragging the barely conscious Jason toward the ship. Kalen, realizing his brother wasn't breaking, suddenly changed tactics. With a gesture, his wrist module activated, and a deep rumble shook the entire flagship. Sarah glanced up in horror as massive sections of the ceiling peeled away, revealing dozens of suspended energy spheres, each one pulsing brighter and brighter, gathering unstable power. Elian's eyes widened. He's activating the Oblivion Array, he said hoarsely. Kalen's voice was calm, final. One command, and I erased the human capital within seconds. Sarah froze, caught between fury and fear. Elian, he'll kill millions. Elian tightened his grip on his plasma lance, staring at his brother with steel in his eyes. Not if I end this now. Elian surged forward, his enhancements flaring at full capacity for the first time. His body blurred, moving faster than sound, his strikes crashing against Kalen's defenses in a storm of light and thunder. Kalen countered with impossible precision, each movement an echo of their shared training, their shared blood, but Elian's desperation gave him speed, strength, purpose. Behind them, Sarah and Crow's battle reached its peak. The wounded purifier roared, his armor fracturing under her relentless assault. At last, she plunged both blades into his chest, piercing the core node directly. Crow let out a single strangled sound before collapsing into a pool of dissolving nanite ash. She turned instantly, just in time to see Elian and Kalen locked in one final exchange. With a roar, Elian feinted left, ducked beneath Kalen's glaive, and drove his plasma lance deep into his brother's chest, straight through the energy core. Kalen froze. For the first time, his cold, perfect composure faltered. He stared at Elian, silver eyes dimming, lips curling into a faint, almost proud smile. "You've grown," he whispered, voice breaking, before collapsing to his knees. The Oblivion array flickered and shut down. The silence afterward was deafening. Elian fell to one knee, breathing hard, covered in blood and scorched armor. Sarah ran to him, dropping beside him, clutching his face in trembling hands. "You're bleeding," she whispered, her voice breaking. He managed a small, tired smile. "So are you." Ryan stumbled toward them, dragging Jason, who was pale but alive. "We have to go," Ryan said, urgency lacing his voice. "This flagship's unstable." Sarah helped Elian up as alarms blared around them. Together, they sprinted toward the Seraphis as explosions tore through the massive hangar. The Seraphis launched just as the flagship erupted behind them, the explosion consuming Kalen's dreadnought in a tidal wave of fire and shatter metal. The other two dreadnoughts broke formation immediately, retreating into hyperspace without their commander. They had won, but it didn't feel like victory. Hours later, the Seraphis floated in low orbit, silent except for the hum of its systems. Elian sat in the co-pilot's chair, bruised, battered, his eyes fixed on the curve of Earth below. Sarah sat across from him, her shoulder bandaged, her amber eyes soft for the first time in days. "It's over," she said quietly. Elian shook his head faintly. "No," he whispered. "It's just beginning." Jason stirred weakly on the medcot behind them, groaning in pain but alive. Ryan leaned against the wall, exhausted, his eyes closed, a faint smile touching his lips. For the first time since leaving Valtarian, there was peace. Not safety, not certainty, but peace. Sarah reached out and took Elian's hand, holding it tightly. He squeezed back, their unspoken bond stronger than ever. Outside, Earth spun slowly beneath them, quiet and fragile against the infinite black. And somewhere, deep in the void, far beyond their sensors, other eyes were watching. Because wars like this were never truly over.